I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
Hello, Essence. Happy 2015. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. Welcome back. We're fresh off of our 2-week hiatus where we had a chance to take a break and bring our year to completion and really just kind of, be inward for a bit, which is always so nice. And it's also nice to be back with you. I'm really glad to get to drop in here together, and later potentially we may actually get to talk to each other live. We'll just see how we roll. We've got a lot to cover today. And really I debated, because it's like, okay, beginning of the year, it's sort of cliche to talk about beginning of the year at the beginning of the year, And yet it's so present, right? It's so present for so many of us. And so I was leaning into, what really is the untamed look at this? And, what are the energetics, or what's the deeper cut that we could actually have that would be a deeper discussion than, the typical ones about should you set resolutions or not set resolutions and, all of those things. So what we're going to play with today is really the energetics of beginnings and endings, and then the larger energetic of how you can go about creating a field for yourself to play in, so that as you move forward into what you're expanding into, it's from a place of a really pristine energetic field that allows what you're creating to have like fertile ground for blossoming. So that's where we're heading today. And I also just want to share with you, this year we're playing with a new way for us to communicate during shows. And that is, we are going to be chatting over on our Facebook page. So you can find us there at www.wsmrchat.com. wsmrchat.com, just like Wild Soul Medicine Radio. And I think you'll have to refresh the page periodically to see people's posts, but head on over there. Viv's already over there. She's going to be largely fielding the information there, and it's just nice to be able to see your faces and for you to see us. And so we'll be communicating there throughout the show as well. And you're welcome to comment if there's a piece that you hear that you like, or if you have a question. And I will check there periodically. Sometimes I get lost in the energy and it's distracting to be over there, but I will check periodically. And if I can work your questions in, I will do that too. So again, one last time, www.wsmrchat.com. Okay, so let's drop in here. Let's drop in first. Just close your eyes and receive a breath as you find yourself really arriving here in this space. Taking a deceleration of the pace of your day, whether you're just beginning it or ending it or right in the middle of it. We have listeners from all over the world. So wherever you are, just use this opportunity to really put on the brakes of your day and arrive here just for a moment, fully still, fully present. All your parts gathered up in this space and time. Yeah. Good. And you can even just listen from that space if you'd like. I wanted to just share with you what occurred for me as I transitioned out of 2014 and into 2015. So, I've talked so much about the enrollment of magic school, the opening of that really large portal of magic school. And we finished with 55 women from around the world enrolled in this high-level deep dive of really birthing ourselves at the highest levels and learning to wield energy and to heal and to see from these very deep levels. And it was a big deal. It was a lot of energy to hold. So I did Woman Come Undone, which was in September, and then 3 months of enrolling in magic school. And so it had been 4 months of a lot of intensive energetics, a lot more time than I had been spending working, at times 50 or 60 hours a week, which I have not done in years. And while it was full and beautiful, for the most part, it definitely was out of balance in a way, and not out of balance as in I shouldn't have done it, just out of balance as in there's a need for a pendulum swing, right? And so I knew that going in, and my intention was to use the last 2 weeks of the year to regroup and rejuvenate and fill my tank again. And what I noticed as I got to those 2 weeks is it was really hard for me to shift gears. I had become adrenalized, and this is even from a space of really doing so much of this work from a very feminine place and, doing all my practices of meditating and self-care and all of that. And it's just a lot of octane to run through a system, And so when I tried to downshift into relaxing, I could not find my gear anymore. I couldn't stop feeling compelled to go sit in front of my computer, even though I didn't have, an email that had to be written or a copy that had to be completed or someone who needed responded to. I felt really jittery, and my husband and I had arranged to have some alone time. So our kids were away a couple different times over those 2 weeks. And, he was wanting to spend time with me. And I was just like, I just want to be spacious. I don't want to be touched or talked to, or, my system felt that tender. So I was just kind of navigating all of that. And he was really gracious about giving me the space. And so I thought, okay, great. So I'm just going to keep doing this. And, I did lots of things to refill my tank. And then I arrived at the beginning of this week, which is when I had planned to be back, fully expecting that I would jump right back in with my plan for 2015. And, I'll be figuring out what the launches look like for the coming year and So Monday morning rolls around and I was so over it. I didn't want to be back at work. I didn't want to jump right into a plan for the year. I was frustrated with myself that I needed even more rest, right? And so I spent, the first couple hours of the morning trying to find that gear, to find the gear of, getting back to it, and isn't 2 weeks enough rest and all of that. And, as I meditated on it, I just got really curious about, isn't it funny? Even this masculine way that is built into every single structure, like every tradition, every way of looking at the world, every piece of our experience. Because the feminine me wanted more spaciousness. And just because it was a certain day on the calendar or a certain week of the year, I didn't want to be forced to do something. And adding to that, I was on my moon and it was a full moon. And so it was a really intense time, which we should be going into the red tent, right? We should be resting and being even more inward. And yet I was ignoring all of those energetics within me in order to follow some outward construct that says we have to kick off the year with a bang and we need to be, excited about our year and our goals and be setting our intentions and all of those things, So the first thing that I want to just say is to give yourself permission. If you're not feeling it, give yourself spaciousness. It's really such a false illusion, this idea of a calendar and time and years and certain things needing to occur at certain times. Like, none of that's actually real. And so there's nothing wrong with just saying, like, I don't know what my intention is for the year yet. And what I know is I'm needing some time to be with it. I'm needing some time to be with myself primarily. And so that's what I did. I actually, stopped doing all of that planning and I just went inward again. And I allowed myself to hardly do anything. And I had a beautiful coaching call with my coach yesterday, which was, so amazing. And I'll share some of those insights a little bit later. And what I also felt into is this energetic that I'm going to share with you today. And this has been a practice I've done for the last, many years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And I think it's so important because I think we do get in such momentum that we skip over this idea of actually completing the energy of the previous year before we jump into the creation of the current year, right? Because everybody's so on board with like, what's my word for the year? And well, last year my year was this, and this year my year is that. And, I think we miss so much medicine when we don't actually create a lot of room for processing and landing in the space of what was. We're really not a culture that does that. It's all about the forward momentum. And so what ends up happening is because we don't do that cleaning up and honoring really of the year before, we end up bringing that stuff with us, right? So the things that we think we failed at and the stuff that we wish would have gone better and the things that we're ashamed of, the painful or traumatic things, those are all kind of like dragging behind us like tin cans tied to a string, and we keep trying to outrun them or forget about them or move on from them. And yet they're clanging around behind us, informing everything that happens after it, right? Because when you have that tin can clanging behind you that says, I don't want to fail like I did last year, right? I don't want to offer another program where no one comes. Then what you're creating is in reaction to that. And so it necessarily includes the energetic of the failure, right? So then when you set your intention this year for a prosperous 2015, it's encoded with the energetic of unlike what happened in 2014. You know what I mean? It just is. And that's how energy works. So my invitation today is for us to drop into a space below the mind, below the masculine of what are you creating and doing and planning and all of that, and really into a more spacious feminine space of what was, what happened, what can we glean from that, what medicine do we take, what honoring needs to occur so that we can bring that fully to completion. And then from that space, we will begin to dream into what's possible from here and how might we go into feeling into, what's calling us. All right. So that's where we're playing today. And this is going to be largely a space of an energetic experience. So if you're moving about, it's not going to work nearly as well. So if you can't actually be quiet for right now, you may want to, definitely make time to come back so that you can listen to this later and actually do this exercise fully for yourself, because you really don't want to rush through it, or again, you're just going to be incomplete, So let's just settle in, get yourself comfortable, turn away from your computer. I know you're probably listening to this on your phone or your computer, but if you can move away from the screen so that you can actually just be internal and not have the interference of the electromagnetic frequencies and all of that. Let's go ahead and just receive a breath. We're going to be in this space for a good bit here. So as you settle in, let's just begin with gathering your attention. So imagine right outside your energy space, about, a foot or two in any direction, that you can just let go of everything you've been engaged in today so far. If you were just reading some emails, if you were, working with your children or in a conflict with someone or thinking about your next appointments, just imagine you can leave all of those right outside your space and call in just your energy, just the parts of you that were engaged in that particular thing. Invite them right into the center of your head, the center of your awareness. And we're going to take a minute here because, again, if we come incomplete with our attention to this exercise, then, only some of it gets seen. So it's important to each step of the way to start training ourselves to be fully present, to be full period, right? So take a minute and imagine that you can turn and see where else are you still engaged. Can you call that part of yourself back in right now? If there are any tricky, stubborn parts, you might imagine taking a pair of golden scissors and just kind of snipping the tendril that's binding those two things together and freeing your energy to come right back in to join you. Good. And then let's go ahead and ground in. So imagine next that as you receive a deep breath, you can breathe in right through the bottoms of your feet. You can start to draw up the energies of the earth, bringing those molecules of down energy right into your legs, your feet, your ankles, your shins, your calves. With your next breath in, imagine the center of your legs becoming a straw, and it's just sucking that earth energy right up through your thighs, making its way to your hips. And then the extra energy cascading from your hips back down into the earth so that you can feel yourself just joining with all of that beautiful support underneath you. Connecting yourself to the turtle medicine of Mother Earth. Beautiful. And it's from this space that, attached to that grounding, you'll be able to let go of any energies that don't serve you, and they'll just go right down into the earth and be recycled. So you'll have a conduit already prepared for letting go of what you don't want to carry forward. Great. All right. So from this space, we're going to take a little journey backward. We're going to go all the way back. We're going to go back to the beginning of 2014. So last year at this time, I want you to remember, where were you? Where were you living? What relationship were you in? What job did you have? What was happening with you? Were you happy? Were you overwhelmed? Were you excited about your year? And don't worry if you can't remember exactly all the details. Just allow the information to come forward. What largely will show up are things that are incomplete in some way or had a big impact. So you might also just call in the energetic of, what was the energetic of January 2014 for me? And just bring it forward. Allow the things that you've labeled as both good and bad to come forward into your attention. And imagine that you can just see them. Just notice them. Take a look. Give them room to be. And then begin to take them one by one and see what needs to happen to bring that piece to completion, right? So perhaps there is a bit of medicine still calling for your attention, right? Some lesson that you haven't yet brought forward fully into your consciousness. Perhaps there is a tie that needs cut fully, right? If a relationship ended, or you left a job, or, even if you left a home or something, you might still have an attachment to that. Even the good things, right? So even the good things we may still have attachments to. And when we have attachment to the good things, that also ends up informing our future creations, right? Because we're like, I want a year as good as last year or better, right? I don't want to have anything less than what that was. And so again, we've then put an underlying current of fear or lack or attachment into the new creation. So what we can do with the quote good things is we can just honor them, right? Like fully open our heart to feel the gratitude of, I'm remembering in January of last year, I was actually at a 7-day event that was like one of the most transformational experiences of my life. I both led part of it and then I experienced part of it. And it was full of miracles. Like, so as I go back to that, there's part of me that's like, oh, I want to keep that for my little gem of memory, right? And I do. And so what I'm going to imagine is that I can take out, just like energetically sifting out the medicine of that, right? I don't even have to know exactly what that is, but I'm just sifting out all of the goodness and I'm allowing it to expand my heart and just really fully feel that. Like it could just almost make me weep as I bring in and just remember how huge that was for my life and how that really set the stage for all of the rest of the things that occurred that year. Right? So I bring that forward. And then I imagine that I can take what's left and just drop it down a grounding receptacle right in the floor, because the details of it and the specific accounts of it and the this and the that, all of that doesn't actually need to be stored anymore. So I'm just letting that go. And what I have in me is this like pristine, pure energetic of what I need from that experience, right? So again, don't spend too much time on the mind piece of figuring out what you need, right? Because the mind is actually the trap, right? So the mind is where the fear piece comes in. But just imagine doing it energetically, right? So move through the next piece that you have from that space of time. And there may be a lot here, right? So if you are listening to the recording and you need more time here, you can just put this on pause and take as long as you need to spend with what is here so that you can bring each piece to full completion. What you'll also notice is as you do this, you can get a little quicker at it because it's not really about holding on or reliving it all because you already were there, right? That happened. It's kind of like we're just going back with our broom and catching the last crumbs of pieces that didn't quite get in the dustpan, you know? We're just mining out the gems and letting the rest go. Beautiful. Great. So as we move forward into the year, let's imagine that we can move forward to April of 2014. So we'll move forward a few months and allow yourself to see anything that occurred in that first quarter that you haven't seen yet. Anything in that first quarter. This is actually working perfectly for me because I'm sitting right in front of my 2014 calendar, which is right in front of where I sit, and I hadn't taken it down yet, and I didn't know why. And now as I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, it's right there. That's where I was in February, and that's what I was doing in March. So, that's a fun way to do it too. If you have your calendar, you can kind of just see what you were up to. But you can also just let the energetic lead you, really. So what happened in that first quarter of 2014? What relationships were you involved in? How were they doing? What was happening in your career? What hopes and dreams did you have for yourself at that time? What were you planning? Pull them forward one by one. Sift out the parts that make sense for you to keep or that serve you to integrate into your system. And let go of everything else. Allow yourself to fully feel what's there. So if there is a relationship that ended and you can feel some grief about that, don't save that for later, right? Your mind might tempt you to say like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to come back and do this exercise. You won't, right? Just do it right now. Allow it to be easy. It's just emotion. Pull out what you need, fully feel it. Feel the disappointment, feel the failure if that's how you cataloged it. Allow yourself to just really experience it here for a few moments so you can be done with it. If it's an edge for you to feel, like it has been for me in the past, sometimes I like to even get a little theatrical about it. So like, I had that interview and I got really excited for it. And then, I really blew it and I didn't think it was actually good at all. And it was so embarrassing. Right. And then I might actually like cringe up and be like, oh, that was horrible, just so I can like let it go, like animate it. So it has some space to get up and out. Yeah, there's nothing to change here. It all happened. All we're changing is your story, your attachment to replaying it over and over and over in the undercurrent. So pull up the next one. Feel what needs to be felt. Keep what needs to be kept. And cast off the rest. Make sure to look at your family relationships, your children, your learning, any classes you were in, any events you attended. Any health issues you experienced, any surgeries you had. Great. And then I like to finish each piece or each section of the year by kind of just doing a final, if there's anything else that I need to have or know or integrate from this space. I just imagine sifting that out right now, bringing it fully into my body and letting the rest go. good. You may already be feeling some lightness, right? Like, whoa, I didn't even know I was carrying all of this stuff, because we just don't do this work. You might also be noticing a theme already. Sometimes we can be a little dismayed when we start to really look at our year in review and see how much of the time we spent unhappy or how much of the time we were in struggle or whatever that might look like. And so that's also just good information, right? It's good consciousness so that you know where you've been. You can let go of that so that you can create something brand new for this year. All right, so let's move forward now. We're arriving in July of 2014. So now it's the summer, the middle of the summer. What were you doing then? What plans did you have? What was your financial situation like? What were you struggling with? What problems were you trying to solve? What was going well for you? Bring them forward one by one. Receive what's yours to receive and discard the rest.
Sometimes when you're quiet, you get real loud.
Great. And then let's move forward. Let's move forward now to October. October of last year, just a few months ago. Right? So it was the fall of the year. The seasons were changing. The kids had been back in school for a couple of months. What was happening then? What were you hoping to accomplish by the end of the year? How was your health? What were you hoping would still happen for you by the end of the year? What were you beating yourself up about? Are there any disappointments that are still calling for your attention? Be willing to take them out and take a look. It's only your story. It's only your story that's making it feel painful. So just embrace it. Lean right into that story of failure, failure, failure. You could have, should have done better. Didn't. Right? Lean into it until it's complete so you can let it go. Great. And as we prepare to bring this piece to a close, go ahead and sift out any last things that you may not be aware of that would serve you to bring forward. Bring them fully into your body. Allow them to integrate in all of your cells, all of that beautiful medicine that you called in for yourself, and allow the rest to fall away. Great, and let's bring ourselves now forward to the end of the year, all the way through the end of December. December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2014. What happened to those last couple months of the year? What were you proud of? What wasn't so good? Where were you struggling in relationship? What had you lost that you felt grief about? What were the holidays like for you? Were they fulfilling? Were they disappointing? What accomplishments were there with your clients or in your work? Bring them forward one by one. Feel what needs to be felt. See what needs to be seen. So that you can be free. Beautiful. Okay, so as we take one final overview of the entire year, imagine you can stand high on a precipice overlooking the entire thing, the broad expanse of those 365 days, and allow yourself to take stock to see if there's any last thing or things calling to you that was the medicine of that experience. Is there any wisdom for you to take with you as you prepare to leave the rest behind? Imagine you can reach down and scoop it up or have it turn into a hawk and fly right into you with all of its medicine encoded. And then tune in with yourself and see, am I ready to close the book on 2014? The good, the bad. It all was. It was what was, and it was perfect. Not in that it couldn't have been better, but in that it was whole and complete. How was it whole and complete? Because it's what happened. And so just allow that information to settle into your system. And when you feel ready, create a line of delineation, create a way to literally close the book on all of that. Perhaps it's turning a page, perhaps it's snapping your fingers or clapping your hands and having that scene disappear from you. Take a moment to do that for yourself. And then allow yourself to physically turn. Wherever you're sitting, change locations. Either turn around and face another direction or move where you're sitting. Right? So that you're literally physically orienting yourself to something new. Something new. And as you sit in this new space, imagine that you can open up your energy as if it is a pure white canvas of new crystalline snow. And here you sit in this unmarred, no footsteps, nothing here but possibility before you. From this moment right here. And just allow yourself to sit in that space of newness. And for some of us, newness feels amazing. And for others of us, letting go feels really scary. So you may still be figuring out how to turn the page. So honor whatever that is. If you need more time with closing the door, you can pause and do that. And then come to this part, right? So come to this part as you sit here in 2015. And I want you to drop below the head. So this experience is not what you think you should do or, what you know or how it relates to anything you've done in the past. But it's dropping below and just allowing your heart, opening the door so that it can blossom and expand. And allow yourself to hear. If there were no rules, if it wasn't about making money, if you didn't have to do anything, if there were no expectations, what does your heart desire? What qualities does it want to experience? What is it longing for? You don't have to agree. You don't have to do it. Just be willing to listen. Allow your heart to have its say. Mm-hmm. And what else? Imagine your cells beginning to quiver with the possibility of opening to your heart song. What if you were allowed to have a brand new, fresh start where you could have anything? You could experience anything. You got to choose. Imagine your inner wise woman spreading her luxuriousness through each and every one of your cells. Feeling how she's not bound by any rules. She's not bound by convention. She is a creatrix at her core. This is what she was made for. Give her room for her nonsensical nature, her irresponsibility, her wildness, her desires that make no sense. Allow her to lead, even if just for a moment. What is she calling you to? And so as we prepare to bring this space to a close, the invitation is actually to continue visiting with her. I feel that she has much to share with you. And she doesn't fit in a box. She doesn't tell you everything she knows in a minute or 5 minutes or an hour. She whispers. She changes her mind. She tries things on. And so you may give her an outlet by journaling or drawing or creating or meditating or dancing or being silent or being in nature. And just allow what she wants to actually emerge. Don't be too quick to jump to what it all means or what your plan for it will be. Allow this year's energy to be set from a space of authenticity with who and what you really are. A wild soul and a feminine body. And so it is. And so you're welcome to stay in this space as we talk just a bit more here before we end. And I'm just going to share a few fun options that feel feminine to me and that I'm using as I am playing with what my essence for the year will be. So, I'm a fan of choosing an essence word for the year rather than choosing specific intentions, right? Like I'll make this much money or I'll do these certain things. I don't like to do those. Instead, I like to choose like what feels like the next unfolding for me or what feels like the thing that I'm wanting to expand into. So last year, my word was receiving. And the year before that, the word was essence. And so, that's one fun way that you can just play with letting it be really expansive. If you just choose more like an energetic or a quality, then you're open to all of the ways that might look. And also, one of the things that occurs when we set an intention, and this happens all over the place, is when you set an intention, what is not in alignment with that intention will have to surface in order to fall away, right? So, when I set receiving as my essence word for the beginning of last year, I actually spent a lot of the year not in receiving, right? Like having all of the things in my life that were not in alignment showing up, right? So things in my relationship with my partner and things with my staff and financially, the whole beginning of the year was a lot less income than I'd ever taken and a lot more money going out. And then it all culminated really beautifully in the end of the year and the best receiving I've ever financially had, times exponential amounts. So, just know that it's not a game of perfect. It's not like if you set receiving that you're just going to have a hugely abundant year. And then a month in when you're not receiving, you're like, I'm chucking it. That didn't happen. It's like continuing to hold this energetic for yourself of certainty that this is what I'm committed to. And so when these things show up, you can recognize that they are medicine and that they are all important pieces of you actually moving into what it is you're desiring, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that I like to play with is numerology. This is a fun thing for me. So there's, so much energy in everything and numbers are the same. And according to numerology, we have there's a 9-year cycle. And so everybody goes through this cycle, and depending on what year you are in the cycle, there are certain themes that actually, delineate that year. And I have found this to really be true. I've followed this for many years, and I really do find it to be in alignment with how my life goes. And how I use it is I typically kind of do my thing, and then I sort of look at the numerology to confirm if that's right. And unfailingly, it's like, yep, that's exactly what I was experiencing. So, Viv, if you would post, again, we're posting over at www.wsmrchat.com. Viv, if you would post those couple websites, the numerology websites on the page, that way people can see them. And if you have any that you use, we'd love to have you share those there as well. And how you find what your personal year is you add up your month and year, or month and day, right? So I'm born on April 11th, so it would be 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus the current year. So plus 2 plus 1 plus 5, right? That's 2015, 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 5. So you add all those together, you end up with, let's say you get 18 as a number, then you add those together until you get one number. So 1 plus 8. So if you get 18, then you add 1 plus 8, that gives you 9. That means you're in personal year 9. Okay. And then on these sites, you can actually look up, okay, so what are the hallmarks of a personal year 9? So for example, a personal year 9 is the end of the cycle. So there's lots of change that happens in those years. So it's like letting go of the old, receiving all the medicine from the things you've been engaged in, and then, preparing to move forward into this brand new cycle of 9 years. And so, having that information can just be good for making sure that you're intending or creating something that really serves what you're wanting to have, right? Making sure that you're in alignment with actually the energetics of where your energy is. So for me, I'm in a year 5, which is right in the middle of the cycle. And it's funny because I was so resisting planning, right? And I tend to be a planner, and I'm like, what's up with, there were several invitations that people had put out, or people were saying like, when is this happening? And when is that happening? And I was really annoyed with these invitations. And so, because what I was feeling is I just want to be spacious. I don't want to be pinned down to anything. When I consulted my numerology, of course, a year 5 is all about flexibility and about keeping your options open so that you can travel and receive and have fun and really glean the benefits of what you've created, which is exactly where I am in my life. So it was just great confirmation of what I'm up to. So that's another place that you can, just use some of this fun playing around with what is my energy telling me and what is in alignment with my feminine. So that's another fun way to play. One other thing that this happened in my coaching session yesterday. So I was it's so vast. I'm trying to figure out like where to start here, but basically what I'm known for and, what I'm attracted to always is shadow, right? So I work with shadow. I see the shadow of a system or a person. I can see the line of code that's out of alignment, and that's, always where my attention goes. And so, I tend to work in darkness, right? And pain and suffering. And, there's a fair amount of that within me as well. And my past lives of all suffering, all of that. And one of the things that occurred for me yesterday, because I was still very much in that funk when I went in of like, I don't know how to feel happiness. Like I've got all this time, I've got all this money. I want to feel freedom, and yet I can't find this other gear, is how it was feeling to me. And so that's what I went in with the intention of, is like, I want to return to essence. And what we discovered is that actually there's a healing that can happen when you open your system to an opposite energy, right? So for me, the thing that felt in the way was this intense tracking that I do. So, that's also the gift, right? So our pain is also our gift. So my gift is I can track everything all the time. And the pain is I can't stop tracking everything all the time, right? So there's no rest for me. And so my adrenals get burnt out. It's hard for me to rest in all the ways that resting could happen. And so what we were looking at is like, what would be the opposite energy of tracking all the time? What would be the opposite energy of always be looking for the shadow? And we ended up coming to purity being the opposite, right? Purity for me. And so it was like I had this beautiful energy healing from my guides where I was actually getting this color spectrum run through my system so that I could access even the feeling of purity, right? And there was this whole past life healing where I was this really pure little being, and I was, here to kind of create that groove for the world to follow. And it didn't, the people didn't really wake up. And so I had processed that as a failure, which meant in my system, it's like either I'm pure or I'm, saving the planet. And this time I'm definitely going to do my mission. So I got to be on overdrive. And so all of that to just say, when we opened up this possibility of purity, it's like it allowed balance to come into my system. And I feel really happy today. And actually, I'm pretty sure at this point, it feels like purity is going to be my word for the year. Because I don't know a lot about it. I'm so steeped in shadow and problems and fixing and all of that. And I'm really curious what purity might look like and feel like, and feels like it also has some applications for healing some of these lingering body issues and things like that. So you may try that on for yourself too. Like if there's one way that you really are, even if it's one of your gifts, because that had been my fear, right? As like, I'm such a tracker, and a lot of people have tried to coach me out of that or talk me out of like, well, just rest, and whenever that would happen, my system would be like, oh no, like that is prime directive and that's my safety, And so, if there's some way that you really are or that you're really good at, maybe you start playing with exploring the opposite, right? That's our untaming. And that's really kind of even the basis of the work that we do with Untamed You is, your soul path, typically like when you're in the tamed version of your soul path, the untaming looks like doing the opposite of what you've done. So if you've been a mystic and you're up in the clouds all the time, the untaming would look like you embracing structure, right? So your word for the year might become structure if you're a mystic. And you can play with all of the ways that would feel good in your system. My other advice would be choose something that feels good in your system. So this doesn't have to be like homework. And that's why you don't want to rush into it, there's all kinds of egoic constructs that might want to come in and have you strive for something. Or, for me, because I had such a great year last year, as I was coming into this year, I was like afraid to pick something because I didn't want to mess anything up, and I wasn't really feeling like I wanted a lot more lessons. Do you know what I mean? So this is why like your word or your theme will present itself to you if you give it enough spaciousness. And when it happens, it'll just be like, that's it. That's totally it. You know what I mean? And that's how I felt about Essence. That's how I felt about receiving my last 2 years. So right now, that's how I feel about purity. And when I decide 100%, I will let you know what that ends up being. I'll post it in the tribe. But we'd love to hear from you. So no rush. Take as much time as you need. But we would love to hear what you are claiming for yourself as your theme for this year. And you can post those over in the tribe. If you're not yet a member, it's facebook.com/groups/Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe. And that's free. So, join us over there. We have lots of great conversations and continue what we talk about here on the radio. If you're on the Facebook page right now, you can post it right over there. We'd love to hear from you there. And again, also, if you have any great numerology sites, post those as well. We'd love to share and check out what the numbers may tell us about where we're all heading this year. So much love to each and every one of you. Blessings on this brand new, pristine year that you are creating for yourselves. And we look forward to walking closely with you and supporting you every step of the way. So until next time, my loves, bye for now.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. an inspiration, for God's sake, illumination, for God's sake, for God's sake, for God's sake.